Hey everybody, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are going to cover something pretty incredible called the 5 reasons why Ferrari sucks. I know you're pretty disappointed because typically exotic car owners, well, you know, we don't get a lot of negative comments to make about cars. And here on Exotic Car Hacks, we have this policy towards, you know, auto manufacturers globally. We just don't give a shit about their opinions of us. And you see, a lot of influencers or individuals that do YouTube reviews simply don't really state their opinions in fears that they won't be invited to future events or future unveilings or future places. And thankfully, to PJ having his very own money and not giving a shit about either YouTube revenue or being invited to any parties, and most people know that I'm not very loved, so most people don't invite me to parties. Isn't that right, Reggie?
I like you.
Well, that's very sweet. If you had a set of tits, it would make it easier, but, well, you kind of do. Yeah.
You're making it dirty out there.
Yeah, wrong tits, right? Wrong type of tits. But anyways, we're back to talking about the 5 things that Ferrari has completely screwed up, the 5 problems that really have become a plague for Ferrari since the 488. And I think it really started with the 488, so perhaps not just everything after the 488, but rather just 488 and on. It was just more obvious starting with the F8. Now, I think one thing that's critically simple to understand is that Ferrari has gone from being a very prestigious, incredibly hard to get kind of car to becoming more mass marketed. And so I think the first problem with Ferrari is that they've stopped making incredible Ferraris and they've started making people pleasers. And I think that is really something that doesn't work very well for an exclusive luxury brand. You see, a luxury brand or an exclusive brand doesn't have to be for everyone. A simple way to look at this is this white watch is incredible to me and I love it and I wear it. You know, it's currently like $400,000, but I would argue that many people watching this channel would argue that it's stupid, you shouldn't spend that much money on a watch, or its design is cartoonish, or it looks like it came out of a cereal box. Whatever the concepts are, the idea is that it doesn't have to appeal to you. It appeals to me and it's worth for me to pay that money, but it doesn't have to appeal to you. And I think manufacturers have realized that they're so trying to steal market share from one another, and they just make these mistakes of basically being in the business of everyone rather than the business of those they seek. And I think Lamborghini's done a really good job with this, and I think that's why it's overtaken Ferrari over the last few years. But I think Ferrari has done a really terrible job at not sticking to what it did really well back then. And I think that's starting to show itself with a lot of their new model line. The second, and I think the most important thing that Ferrari has failed to do over the last couple of years and is starting to get worse is craftsmanship. Their quality control is absolute horseshit. And you might say, well, did you just have a bad experience with a car? F8 Coupe, F8 Spider, SF90, 812 GTS, 812 Superfast, all of these cars I've owned, all of them had craftsmanship issues. From the F8 glass coming loose and the panels coming apart, to the cars being repainted improperly brand new at the factory with panels not matching, to mirrors missing paint. I mean, you could say, well, fine, it's the first batch because I'm always first at getting these things. Maybe it's the first batch, they're just not as good. Why should the first batch of something be less good when it's a new product? It shouldn't. It should be 10 times better. So it doesn't really make sense. Like, the logic, basically, in my opinion, doesn't really make sense as to why this would be a problem, you know? So the way I look at it basically is that if craftsmanship on a car that high is such bad quality that 4 models in a row suffer from the same, then you have really bad quality control somewhere down the assembly line, someone who's not paying attention to details or just not doing a good job. So I think that's the second worst thing. The third problem that Ferrari has, which is really, again, important for the future sales of their cars, is, you ready for this? Service. You see, I have owned everything from Lamborghini, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and everything else multiple times. and in multiple states. So it's not just like the experience is based on one bad dealership here or there. And I have had the bad, the worse, and the really ugly. And I can tell you that historically, I have had more bad experiences with various Ferrari dealers than I have had with Lamborghini and that I have had with McLaren. Now, I will tell you in order, the best service I've ever received in dealerships across the spectrum of dealerships has been Rolls-Royce's, better than anything else, followed by Lamborghini, and then followed by Aston Martin, then followed by McLaren, and finally followed by Ferrari at the very bottom. But it doesn't make sense because historically, Ferraris are relationship-based car purchases. The majority of people can't buy a Ferrari without having owned a previous Ferrari and so on and so forth. So it doesn't make sense to me when you tell me that someone who is so driven on a relationship-based purchasing experience is also not doing a good job at supporting those relationships. So very disconnected, very confusing, and honestly, 3 times I've gone in with an issue for a Ferrari, I have been told that they were going to submit pictures and go ahead and get me a repair on something, like maybe bad craftsmanship or the tail lights had fogging. I never heard back from the dealership, and more importantly, the claim was never submitted. I've had other places where, you know, it took 3 days to get something approved that should have taken 5 minutes, and yet it just wasn't because they needed more explanation as to how something would happen when it didn't make any sense. And then, you know, I've had various experiences with other manufacturers where I didn't have that good of experience with McLaren previously until I started getting to $1 million cars. Then the experience started changing drastically. So do I think that it's fair because I haven't really been taking $1 million Ferraris to, you know, the dealership to see how I get treated? I think in general, this is the main reason why McLaren and Ferrari rank at the bottom in service. But I would say that, again, dealership to dealership is going to vary, but for the most part, I would say for the majority of dealerships I have interacted with have brought us here to this place where I rank Ferrari as the worst, period, in this particular context. So the fourth problem with Ferrari is the way they treat car purchases. So this is something that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We all know that the car market has obviously gone up over the last few years and has created opportunities in general across the board about like cars being worth money, and certainly more rare cars being worth over MSRP and bringing a return. And one of the things that I've never understood is how manufacturers attempt to basically curb resellers by creating these things like 6 months no resale policies and so on and so forth, and they slap these on customers. And that's okay, right? I get why they do that. It helps them do that. But one of the things I've noticed with Ferrari is that they actually ban people even after they've had a relationship for a mistake, instead of engaging in a conversation about the car. You see, many times, personally for me, I absolutely don't care about this, but there are some people that do because obviously their relationships matter to them. But there have been people that I have watched literally sell a car a month earlier than the 6 months, and even though they've purchased 10, 15 cars previously, get banned from getting any future cars because of this one mistake. Instead of really trying to understand what's occurred or engaging with the client in conversation, a simple blacklisting, banned, we can't help you occurs, which is really bizarre for someone that had a relationship previously. And I've watched this multiple times occur, which made me start to realize that Ferrari is playing the numbers game of appealing to all and hoping that you either play by their rules or they don't really like you. And the last piece about Ferrari is they want their brand to be something it's just not. So what do I mean by that? Well, simply put, Ferrari spends a lot of time controlling the narrative of their cars. They invite YouTubers and individuals to reveal their cars, but tell them exactly what to say, what not to say, and certainly will prevent them from coming back again. They have celebrities buy their cars, but they criticize them once they customize their cars or brand their cars a certain way. Instead of being inclusive towards the fact that if a product is flawed, the criticism will help fix future product, they want to create a narrative that just isn't true, and as a result end up hurting themselves more than anything else because they're proving to people that they're not just flawed, but they're not really interested in fixing these flaws either. So those are my 5 problems with Ferrari. Hopefully you learned something new, and of course make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more content like this. And you tell me, do you love Ferrari? Do you hate them? Am I right or not? Put it in the comments and I'll catch you in the next video for Exotic Car Hacks. Hey everyone, PJ here. Thanks for watching and I hope you've enjoyed the content. Now listen, if you want to learn more about how to become a car hacker, all you have to do is click the link on your screen and take my free 60-minute training on how to hack exotic cars. Your ability to learn how to get in and out of cars without losing any money, and in many cases, not even using your very own money. So click the link and I'll see you inside the training.